Welcome to the Healthy Compulsive Project podcast, where you can take a deep dive to explore the pitfalls and potential of the obsessive-compulsive personality, offering hope and help for perfectionists, workaholics, micromanagers, type A personality, and control freaks. Hello everyone, Gary Trosclair here, psychotherapist, Jungian analyst, and author of the Healthy Compulsive Project book, blog, and podcast. Wouldn't it be nice to be happy? I suspect that most of my listeners would agree, but find that as hard as turning off the sun. It feels out of our control. Everything that's unresolved, imperfected, and out of order is exposed to the light, whether we want to see it or not. I think that to the degree that we can control it, it requires a different approach than the one that's often suggested. Or perhaps I should say an additional approach that doesn't necessarily go against popular wisdom, but takes into account the psychological territory that we're in. So in this podcast, I'll make some realistic suggestions about how people with compulsive and perfectionistic tendencies, planning and list making in particular, can work with those to achieve some degree of happiness. This is episode 51 of the Healthy Compulsive Project podcast, How Compulsive Perfectionists Can Cultivate Happiness. Our North American culture has become obsessed with happiness and has made itself miserable in the process. Trying too hard to be happy is doomed to failure. Happiness is the byproduct of a life well lived, not a goal that you can reach by targeting it. But compulsive perfectionists have the opposite problem. Their behavior might make it look like they aren't even interested in being happy. To the degree that they are interested in it, they tend to believe that perfection, completion, and control will make them happy, or at least their own version of happy. Compulsives are very good at delaying gratification. They do it with the assumption that someday, in the future, they'll allow themselves to be happy when they've completed everything they're supposed to do, which we all know never happens. And until never comes, happiness is forbidden. So I wanted to share some thoughts about how to create conditions in which happiness can evolve organically and realistically within the parameters of the compulsive perfectionistic personality. But first, a note. This post is about cultivating happiness, which is somewhat different from dealing with depression. For ideas about depression in the compulsive personality, please listen to episode 3 in this podcast. Popular wisdom tells us that one of the best tools for cultivating happiness is to savor the present moment so that you aren't regretting the past or worrying about the future. Being in the moment is a great antidote to the compulsive strategy of delaying gratification. I highly recommend it. But it does need to be adjusted for particular personalities since it's a really difficult antidote for compulsive perfectionists to swallow. And, at least as problematic, it may neglect possibilities of other rewarding aspects of their lives. Leaning too much on the strategy of appreciating the moment can actually backfire when people feel they should be able to be in the moment, to smell the roses, but can't. The way to thread the needle here is paradoxical. Compulsive perfectionists may need to take into account that it's their nature to plan, delay gratification, focus on productivity, and seek perfection. We need to learn to savor those tendencies rather than try to stop them, to be in the moment with them rather than getting them over with. If not used consciously, and if used to the exclusion of well-being and relationships, these tendencies hijack our lives through force of habit and need for security. Any possibility for a healthy version of happiness founded on fulfillment, gratitude, and contentment through these traits is then lost. But if used consciously, these compulsive traits can be helpful to us and those around us and can even make us happy. Let's talk about two compulsive tendencies that can either make you happy or miserable: planning and list making. Paradise obsessed. When things were just starting to open up toward the end of the COVID pandemic, I obsessed a fair amount about where to stay when my wife and I went on our first short road trip for vacation, assuming we could. It was trying to find a paradise that was COVID safe and within our budget, and I wasn't taking good enough as a way to end my obsessing. I enjoyed the hunt for a while. Once it wasn't fun anymore, I knew it was time to give up. Truth to tell, though, I'm glad I waited to settle in a place because I wasn't really happy with what I'd been finding, and once I did, I was really happy about it. My obsessing did get bad for a little while toward the end, but for 4 months going forward, I was able to look forward to a nice rest. It might seem that I was violating a fundamental axiom of happiness, live in the now. But I was living in the now because I enjoyed the hunt, and then I enjoyed the anticipation, which is a big part of any vacation for me. I've done this enough to know that the hoped-for paradise is never perfect, but that's okay. I just like knowing that I have a break coming up that I'll enjoy. It actually helps me to be more focused on and enjoy my work in the present until then. It's not so much about the future, it's about how I feel now. Even though I do practice mindfulness meditation twice a day, it's probably unrealistic for me to think that I could live totally in the moment and not enjoy thinking about that vacation in the future. The perils and potentials of lists. It's similar with lists. As with planning, lists can improve the chances for happiness or kill them. Lists can diminish anxiety that would otherwise preclude happiness. If you're worried about forgetting to do something you're supposed to do, it's hard to be happy. And, on the other hand, it definitely makes some compulsives happy to check things off that list. But when lists get too long, too detailed, or too overbearing, they can also deter happiness. The question is, who is in control of the list? The productivity gods or you? If you can consciously make lists that encourage balance, you can harness compulsive energy and enlist it in service of your happiness. Here's a list that includes things that are virtually always left off. Enjoy making the list. Cuddle with your partner. Savor a good deep breath. Enjoy doing projects on the list. Go for a leisurely walk. Enjoy crossing things off the list. Lists should serve humans, not vice versa. When the lists start to make you unhappy, it's time to let it go. But otherwise, go for it, mindfully. If you've got these tendencies, savor them as much as you can. Stop thinking you're supposed to be smelling the roses when you know that planting and managing the garden is what really makes you happy. Balancing productivity and people. So, one way to cultivate happiness is to actually savor your compulsive tendencies rather than feel you're supposed to be more Zen-like. But there's a big caveat here. People. You can't live with them, but you can't live without them either. Savoring compulsive tendencies can be a good thing, but if it leads to isolation or causes distress to those around you, it's not going to raise your quotient of happiness. Because compulsives are so perfectionistic, and because other people can be so sloppy in so many ways, being around other people can make it hard for compulsives to be happy. And perfectionists can make other people very unhappy with their demands and control. Understood. But it's a rare individual who is truly happy just being alone. For most compulsives, if you do want to be happier, it will take letting go of judgment and appreciating what other people do have to offer as they are. Even when they do get in your way, judging other people may give you a short jolt of righteous happiness, but it sours with time. Basic self-regard for the compulsive perfectionist. This goes for you, too. There's a specific reason why it's important for compulsives to lay off self-judgment and develop basic self-regard. Self-judgment leads to the need to use compulsive traits, such as perfectionism and productivity, to prop up self-esteem, and it ruins the possibility of savoring them. Basic self-regard should not be dependent on perfection and achievement. Savoring these things is hard when you need to use them to prove how good you are. We need to question the idea that we can't be happy until we're better people. Self-improvement may seem like the greatest possible good, but it can also become a trap. Happiness can be cultivated in a realistic way if you have a strong foundation of self-esteem, not based on constant comparing and measuring, but on an appreciation of your basic goodness and what you have to offer. I won't pretend this is simple or easy, but as I wrote about in my book, The Healthy Compulsive, enlisting compulsive and perfectionistic energy can bring out the benefits of those traits and can help cultivate the conditions for happiness. You can find transcripts of this podcast with links to research sources and lots more at the Healthy Compulsive blog, www.thehealthycompulsive.com. If you'd like to subscribe to the Healthy Compulsive podcast, hit that subscribe button. And for a thorough guide to cultivating the positive potential of the compulsive personality, find my book on Amazon, The Healthy Compulsive, Healing Obsessive-Compulsive Personality Disorder and Taking the Wheel of the Driven Personality. And if you find any of these helpful, let others know by leaving a review. Till next time, enjoy the drive.